Apple says the new AirPods Pro 3 have, quote, the world's best in-ear active noise cancellation, end quote, bar none, best ANC in the game. That's a huge claim. They also say the sound is better, the fit is way different, and they even have a heart rate sensor in them. But how much of this is just marketing hype, and how good are the AirPods Pro 3 actually? I've tested hundreds of earbuds, and so in this video, we'll go through the results of my rigorous testing and find out just how good the Apple AirPods Pro 3 actually are. Now, I've been listening to these essentially non-stop since I got them, and I have to say, there's a lot to share in this video. The ANC is certainly really good on these, but I'll share my test results and explain where they excel and where they fall short, because obviously they're not perfect. I'll also get into a microphone test in several environments, I'll analyze the sound quality for you, and we'll take a look at some new features. And in case you haven't seen my channel before, yes, we will definitely get into a heart rate test to see just how accurate these things actually are and how useful they might be in workouts. Now, these are without a doubt the best AirPods I've ever tested, but let's get started with the biggest and boldest claim that Apple made on the top of the website: the best ANC in the game. Now, ANC is not a one-dimensional thing, so I want to break this down into a couple different tests here to really dissect this. So the first one is jet sounds. I play the sound of a jet at a set distance away, I turn that volume up until the AirPods are no longer able to block it. Apple claims these are 2 times better than the previous generation AirPods Pro. Well, the old AirPods Pro in the test that I just did a couple minutes ago blocked 59.5 decibels. The new AirPods blocked 65.5 decibels, significantly more, and that is a huge difference. Now, you might wonder, why isn't it double the decibels? Well, decibels are not a linear scale, they're a log scale, so a couple decibels could be double the volume that's actually being blocked. So without a doubt, blocking those lower droning sounds, absolutely incredible. These do an amazing job, and I will be comparing them to the Bose and Sony earbuds. If you want to see that, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I have that full comparison coming very soon, and I'm really excited for that. All right, so test number 2 is blocking the sounds of voices, people talking. This is generally a lot more difficult compared to the low droning sound of a jet, for example. So I played an interview of Taylor Swift, and I just turned up the volume until the AirPods were no longer able to block it out again. And the old ones were blocking out up to 43 decibels, and the new ones 48 decibels. So significantly more powerful when blocking out vocal sounds. And one of the main reasons for that is because the ear tips on here now have foam in them. It's a complete redesign on the ear tips, and I'll talk more about that in the fit and the comfort aspect. But the foam in the ear tips should improve the blocking of higher frequencies with what's called passive noise blocking, as opposed to ANC. Then test number 3, let's talk about even higher pitched sounds than that. Sometimes I just play the drums with ANC earbuds in, and it does a good job of like blocking the sound without damaging my ears. And these do a really good job, with one interesting exception. Cymbals tend to kind of get through and kind of make the earbuds a little bit confused, I would say. So, I mean, they're probably not gonna be the best for just like sitting and drumming. Like I said, the cymbals and the hi-hats sometimes are a struggle for these earbuds, but other than that, these are incredible at blocking pretty much anything out there. They do have the same H2 chip as before, so I would expect most of the improvements are related to the drivers, algorithms, bigger vents, and possibly the better passive seal as well. Not so much related to the processing, because like I said, it's the same chip as before. The fourth category for ANC, then there's one more after this. This is one that I think most people really overlook. How well do these perform in a quiet environment? If you have ANC on and there's really not a lot of sound, some earbuds produce a lot of hissing and white noise and artifacts. These have none of that. These are absolutely silent, and I think that's a really big positive here. Lastly, the wind rejection. If you're walking outside and you want to block noises and it's windy, these do an incredible job of that as well. I would say that it sounds like almost nothing. Like, you can still hear the wind a little bit. It's kind of similar to like what it sounds like on your ears naturally, which you probably don't even notice. Your brain just tunes that out. But it's actually even quieter than that when you're using these earbuds. So again, huge thumbs up. Great job, Apple. ANC absolutely crushed it with these. Now, before we get into the transparency test, you may be wondering, all right, that maybe it's just like the new foam ear tips are the biggest difference. Are they reverse compatible? No, they're not. You can buy, I think Comply makes some foam tips you can put on the original AirPods Pro and the second gen, but they're not going to be the same as these new ones, and the new ones do not fit on the old AirPods. They're just not compatible at all. It's a very different design if you look at them side by side. Now, getting into the transparency of these do an excellent job here. Again, no surprise. Apple's always been kind of #1 in the industry with transparency across all of the earbuds I've ever tested. And these also have a volume limiter on them, as we saw in the previous generation. So if you're walking outside and something loud happens, it's not going to blow out your ears. It's going to reduce that volume and play it back at a controlled level. And I mentioned this before, but I've seen people in bars or like at a wedding as a bartender, for example, where they need to hear orders all the time, but it's really, really loud in there. So they can't wear earplugs, but if they don't wear anything, it damages their ears. And this is kind of an interesting, perfect solution there, where you're able to hear everything, but it reduces it to a safer volume. The transparency I find is slightly sibilant. Like you can definitely hear the S sounds are really strong going through transparency here, but otherwise very natural, very like realistic sounding. The only downgrade from the previous generation AirPods is that you're not going to forget these are in your ears because unlike the soft silicone tips, the foam tips are kind of always more there. Like I always just know they're in my ears, which kind of leads me into the next category, being the design of these earbuds. So the case is nearly identical to before. The earbuds are IP57 rated compared to IP54, so better water resistance, which is great. If you ever drop them in a little puddle, these should hopefully be better than the previous generation. The case can again charge with MagSafe, USB Type-C, Apple Watch charger, that's a pretty big positive there, and other wireless chargers, so tons of way to charge this up. The battery on here is 8 hours with ANC in the earbuds and 24 hours total when you include the case, which I believe is slightly less than we saw before. I think it was 30 hours with ANC on the previous case. Regardless, the ANC is way more powerful now, so that kind of makes sense. Additionally, 5 minutes of charging should give you 1 hour of listening, and you get 10 hours, actually this is a big improvement. It was 6 hours before, now you get 10 hours in the earbuds when using the hearing aid feature, so anyone who uses these to actually use them as a hearing aid, that's a big positive. You can get through more of a day, like 65% more of the day. The design of the buds is also slightly different, so if you just picked one up, you might not know which one it is, but side by side, you can see some pretty substantial differences. The larger vent on the top, the heart rate sensor on the inside, and if you take the little ear tips off, you can see a very different geometry, which is why, like I said, the ear tips are not cross-compatible. The controls, again, awesome on these. Pinch, slide, or the new one, you can pinch both to enter Live Translate, and I did test Live Translate pretty extensively. We'll talk about that later in the video. But let's talk about the fit. I mean, everyone has weird ears, like that's just the nature of ears. All ears are different, but for me, I've always struggled with the AirPods Pro falling out of my left ear. And because these are a foam ear tip now, they stay in so much better. Like there's a little bit more pressure on my ear. The geometry seems to just be better for my ears as well. And these never seem to fall out no matter how much I wear them. I can run with them, and here, I'll even do like a head shake test right now so you guys can see. Yeah, they don't even budge. Like you don't need wingtips on these, but if you, for some reason, do need them, there are actually 5 different ear tips in the box, so you can try different sizes. You can also try pushing them in a little bit further. These go deeper than the previous generation, so that should help them stay in a little better. And if that doesn't work, you actually can buy some wingtips that go on the outside of the earbud to stay in. Maybe you do that like just for when you go for a run, because unfortunately they won't fit in the case then, but it's an option if you want. They're on Amazon. Maybe I'll put a link below if you guys want to check that out. Separate category here, I want to call comfort different from fit. Fit's like how well do they stay in your ears? Comfort's like, can you wear them all day? These, again, that ear tip is different now, so unlike the soft silicone we had before, I find the foam has a soft, even pressure, but definitely more of a pressure within my ears. And like I said, there are 5 different sizes, so you can find the right one for you, but my ears do tend to get like a little bit warm and a little bit fatigued after maybe like 2 hours of wearing them. It's a pretty long time, but nonetheless, like it's something that may bother other people more. I feel like I would totally get used to it, but if you're someone that like sleeps with your AirPods, that could also be a factor, which again, I kind of wanted to add this new section in my videos, like a sleep test, like can you actually sleep with these earbuds? I tried it earlier. I didn't try falling asleep, but I tried laying down with these. And of course it depends on the pillow, but they have a fairly slim profile. They stay in really well. And I feel like I actually could sleep on my side with these. Obviously sleeping on my back is easy, but yeah, I could sleep on my side with these. And I think a lot of people probably will end up doing that, sleeping with AirPods to block out like noisy neighbors or something, or maybe just to play rain sounds. Totally possible. So let's get into a microphone test. This is what it sounds like with the microphones on the brand new Apple AirPods Pro 3. I'll do a comparison now against the previous generation AirPods Pro so you can see how much different or better or worse these might sound. And then, of course, we'll go outside in an outdoor environment with a lot of wind to see how they perform there. And now here are the previous Apple AirPods Pro. Again, when you wear them side by side, you definitely notice a difference in the fit and the comfort. I think like these definitely don't fit as well. Like this one always works its way out, but I think they might be more comfortable, the previous ones, because like it is just a softer silicone. But anyway, microphone test. I thought these were fairly similar, but you can let me know in the comments below. We'll go outside and see how they perform out there.
All right, this is an outdoor test with the Apple AirPods Pro 3. You can tell it's obviously really windy. There's a lot of traffic behind me. It's pretty loud out here. Let me get you a sample without the AirPods so you can see.
All right, so here you can see it's definitely loud. If I was on the phone, it would be, there's also construction back there. Yeah, there's a lot of construction. I didn't even hear that with the AirPods in.
And now here's the microphone test with the previous generation Apple AirPods Pro. I feel like the wind died down a little bit, so maybe this is a bad example, but there's still a lot of traffic behind me, and there's still somebody installing a roof like right over there.
And then of course we have the sound quality. I mean, without a doubt, it's no surprise here. These are the best sounding AirPods by far, and there's a lot to like here. They have a nice clean balance, fairly wide soundstage, definitely wider than before, pretty decent instrument separation, and sufficient bass now. The bass is kind of boosted a little bit more, and also pretty well controlled. They sound balanced without being muddy or any kind of overbearing low end. The one thing I notice is that if there's like a lot of finger sliding on guitars, for example, when switching chords, that can be a little bit sibilant. Like you can kind of hear that a lot. Also, like for example, if you're listening to The Funeral by Band of Horses, he does that a lot. It's kind of a little bit irritating. For me at least, I don't really like that about the AirPods. Similarly, if you're listening to like a lot of Billy Strings or flat picking on acoustic guitar, you can definitely hear the pick a lot. And there's not like a ton of warmth to the guitar, but I think otherwise, like most songs, pretty well balanced. The bass is controlled, well delivered. The bigger vents on the top kind of do contribute to that. And I would say, like, I don't want to exaggerate that. Like, they're not particularly harsh, but definitely sound like a little bit too much on the cymbals and the string slides and stuff like that. That's what I personally noticed. I was talking to Brandon Lee about that. I think he was more bothered by like the S sounds. Didn't quite bother me as much as it bothered him, but you can check out his video. He'll explain that, and I'll link that one down below as well. The upper mids are crisp and bright, but otherwise, generally like very AirPods sounding balance here. Pretty flat, pretty neutral balance, and they're gonna be using SBC or AAC codecs. Apple does a really good job with AAC though. Like it sounds pretty good. Unfortunately, these don't have any lossless audio unless you're playing music on Apple Vision Pro or I don't know, watching a movie on Apple Vision Pro, whatever. For some reason, it's only gonna be on Apple Vision Pro for that lossless experience. Overall, the only real complaints, no lossless audio and still no EQ for the AirPods on Apple. Now let's talk about that heart rate feature. Is it going to be a gimmick? Is it going to be good? This is the kind of thing that you see in a lot of earbuds. They bring out stuff like this and usually it's like, I'm never gonna use it because it's in some weird corner of an app that you're never actually gonna use, but Apple integrated this very well into Apple Fitness. So even if you have an Apple Watch, this will use a combination, they didn't really say, between the Apple Watch heart rate sensor and the earbuds heart rate sensor. And if you don't have an Apple Watch and you just take out your iPhone and start recording a workout with Apple Fitness, for example, it'll automatically sync up with your AirPods and track your heart rate. And based on my testing, I'm gonna chalk this up as really well done feature as opposed to gimmick because it's actually incredibly accurate. I was really impressed by, I've taken these on a couple different workouts, and as you can see right here, compared to a Polar H10, which is an ECG heart rate strap, super accurate, these were pretty much in lockstep with whatever I did. The heart rate was very, very close, and I even have an R value here. You can see closer to 1 is better, and these were well above 0.9, meaning that it was really quite similar to the known accurate Polar H10 heart rate strap. The only complaint is that while these do work with some apps, like I think Ladder was an app that they work with, you can't just open the Strava app and have them set up with that. But as long as you connect these other apps to Apple Fitness or Apple Health, the workouts will automatically port over. So I've just been using the Apple Fitness app to track my heart rate and my workouts. And like I said, works super well. If you're wearing it with an Apple Watch, as I mentioned before, it'll use either the watch heart rate or your AirPods heart rate, sometimes both. Apple's a little bit opaque about this. They don't really tell you which one it is, but I would suspect that because the AirPods are very, very accurate, it's probably gonna favor the AirPods as long as the battery allows. I'm sure they have some algorithm to decide which one they're gonna use, but I think that's a huge positive. Like the heart rate, I did not expect earbuds to be on my list of like most accurate heart rate sensors of 2025, and yet this is the second one. The other one being the new Powerbeats Pro. They had some bugs. They weren't always tracking perfectly. They had some dead spots, but when they were tracking, they were really accurate. Makes sense, internal with Apple, probably some of the same tech or same engineers, a little cross-pollination. The AirPods, absolutely incredible. One thing though, is that they only work during workouts. I think it'd be cool if it always tracked when you're wearing them, like during the workday, or maybe like if you're sleeping, for example. Some people sleep with these. That would be pretty neat. So these are really good earbuds. Great ANC, great sound, great microphones, great transparency, great heart rate sensor. There's a lot that they do really well, but if you don't have an iPhone, they're not the best for you. But I still want to do an Android test. Like if you have maybe a MacBook and an Android phone, or maybe the other way around, if you're using something in the Apple ecosystem, but the other stuff is not, can you still use AirPods? So I paired these with my Galaxy Z Fold 7, and you do that by opening the case and double tapping the front. You'll see a white blinking light that puts them in pairing mode. It's kind of a secret button there, and you won't have an app for updates on Android or really any other settings adjustments. If you have anything else in the Apple ecosystem, you can update them there. But even if you don't and you just want to use them with Android, they work pretty well, honestly. Like, sound is good, volume adjustment works just fine by swiping up and down. You can switch between ANC and transparency. You have playback controls. The things you're going to miss out on are going to be like the ability to find your case with Find My, or voice assistant summoning, or auto live translate, different things like that that are very Apple specific. But the AirPods still function as regular earbuds very well on Android. So if you have a multi-ecosystem household, these are totally fine for you. As far as features go, I kind of talked about some of the new ones there, but let's talk about what features these have. So precision locating with ultra wideband, that's like when you walk around and it shows you what direction it is. It's now 50% longer range, so better chip in the case, easier to find that from further away. They also have a little speaker on them, of course, so you can make them chirp from a longer distance and find out where they are. The live translate feature, one of the big things people were really excited about. I wanted to see, like, does this work on other earbuds as well with an iPhone? How well is it actually executed? Well, in the Apple Translate app, you have to go on the app and you have to download the language you want. Right now, there were 4 that were available for me. And then once you have it downloaded, you just pinch both sides on your AirPods and it'll automatically start that. You need to have your phone nearby though. You still hear the ambient sound, like it goes into transparency, so you can hear whoever's talking, and then you also hear the other voice on top. And there's definitely a lag because, of course, it is translating. It's not like word for word translating. Grammar's different in other languages, but it shows you the translation on your phone, like written text, and at the end of each sentence, it'll read the whole sentence out to you on the AirPods. It's also always the Siri man's voice, like it's a male voice. Like I watched a speech in German, Angela Merkel was talking, and the AirPods still played a male voice, which was a little strange, but maybe better. Like you could hear 2 distinct different voices, and it was easier to focus on just one. But the translation's not perfect. Like there was a time when, I mean, maybe it was perfect, maybe that's what you said, but it was talking about eating people.
And there were people, and we still eat them today, who in this catastrophic situation, from the perspective of the Germans, with regard to what they had done.
If you speak German, let me know. Was she talking about eating people? But live translate's pretty solid. Like I think if you're traveling and you're like talking to your taxi driver or you're on a tour and they only speak another language, you could definitely get by with this. It's not going to be like, I wish there's a little bit more controls in how much you block out the other sounds versus like hearing all the voices and try to focus on the translation. But nonetheless, I'm happy that this feature exists and I think it's pretty well done so far. We also have conversation awareness. So if you're wearing the AirPods and you start talking, have a conversation with somebody, not in live translate, just in, using your AirPods, it'll turn the volume down, it'll turn on transparency, you can have a conversation, and then when you're done talking, it'll go back to music. And the longer you talk to somebody, the longer it waits before it goes back to music. We have adaptive audio, personalized spatial audio on here, and the stuff that we've been seeing on AirPods for a little while. And as usual, there is no true multi-point connectivity outside of the Apple ecosystem. Within Apple, seamless switching across everything, which is awesome. But if you, again, have like a Windows laptop and an iPhone and an iPad, you can't switch to the Windows laptop without turning Bluetooth off on the other 2, essentially. These do still have Bluetooth 5.3, and with that, you're getting mono mode, like you can listen to just one earbud while the other's in the case. And the other feature that Apple kind of talked about adding this year was the press and hold to take a photo or start a video, essentially controlling your camera, which I think would be a little odd if you're taking photos like holding your AirPods, but I think it could be good for like astrophotography, taking star photos where you don't want to move a lot. Maybe you set up your phone, you go back, you press your AirPods, and you take the picture like that. And of course, the hearing assistance, I think, is a huge win. I'm really happy to see Apple kind of focusing on the accessibility needs of people. So there's hearing test on here. These work like hearing aids. They protect your hearing if you're using transparency mode. There's a lot that they do that is better for your ear health. So the Apple AirPods Pro 3. We talked about a lot in this video. The pros, these have incredible ANC. I cannot emphasize that enough. I was very impressed by that. The transparency is also really solid. The fit stays in my ears so much better. The comfort, there's a little bit of pressure there, but everyone's ears are different, so leave a comment and let me know if they're comfortable for you. For me, I get ear fatigue a little bit sooner than I did in the past. As far as the features go, I mean, Apple's really given us a lot. The sound quality is pretty great on these. Very neutral, very kind of plain, but nonetheless really versatile for probably what is going to be the best-selling earbuds of the next year, almost definitely. AirPods are usually one of the top-selling earbuds of the year. So, my complaints though. I would still love to see lossless audio. Apple Music has it, but you just can't use it on the AirPods. I wish we could have that with the iPhone. And also, they still have no EQ on them. So if you don't like the way the sound is, there's not a whole lot you can do. There's some kind of workarounds. You can kind of equalize it, but there's no just EQ that you can set up in your settings there. But otherwise, Apple AirPods Pro 3, huge win in my opinion, 2 thumbs up, and I'm excited to make comparisons between these and Sony and the Bose, and leave a comment about any other ones I should compare to. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike O'Brien, and I'll see you in those comparisons.